I don't think I have ever been more excited to see how a show unfolds. I was so excited that I didn't even want to sit down and watch the episodes because that would mean I'd have nothing left to watch, that it would be over. And truly, I am going to miss this show. It was an insane roller coaster filled with drama and mayhem, but also wickedly entertaining. The episodes were both too long and not long enough. Season 3 of The Summer I Turned Pretty was a wild ride, and I'm glad I got to be a part of it. Like the last 2 episodes I made, I'm going to be doing a deep dive on Season 3, comparing it to the book it was based on, and give my reactions and opinions to where our characters end up. If you have not seen the entirety of Season 3, please watch it and then come back, because we will be discussing every spoiler. To hop right into it, this show deviated from the book in one major area, or at least I think it's major: the characters' ages. In the show, Belly is 20, turning 21, Jeremiah and Stephen are 22, and Conrad is 23. In the books, Belly is actually 18, turning 19, with Jeremiah and Stephen being 20 and Conrad being 21. This might not sound like the largest age difference in the world, but I promise getting engaged at 20 is different from getting engaged at 18. At least at 20, you can assume there's a bit more maturity, but 18 feels like a child, still a teenager despite being a legal adult. And I think that really is an overarching theme here, how immaturity leads to rash decision making and having regrets. Almost every character in Season 3 makes terrible decisions based on their feelings in the moment instead of thinking logically and long term. And I think that's why the show is so widely watched. There's something so entertaining about watching a train wreck in slow motion. There's this concept of how a car crash doesn't cause the most delays in traffic. It's the fact that everyone else on the road wants a good look at the wreckage, and that is what causes the delays. This season was a beautiful car crash train wreck for everyone involved. So let's change things up a little from previous episodes and dive into what in the world is happening with Belly. Our girl Belly is in a relationship with Jeremiah for 4 years now, and she is enrolled at Finch College to be with him. They are happy together, spending days in each other's arms. It's gotten to a point where they spend more time together than alone, but it's clear the past hasn't been fully forgotten. In episode 2, we get to see how last Christmas went. Belly was set to be alone for the holidays, and she decides she's going to be alone. She'll be at cousins. Suddenly, there's someone at the door. It's Conrad. His flight has been delayed, and he decides to wait out the storm at the beach house. It's a slightly tense reunion at first, but soon they fall into a friendly rhythm. Nothing actually happens between them. They don't talk about the past. They don't do anything. Technically, the whole event would have been meaningless, a fun coincidence. It is bad, though, when Belly purposefully doesn't tell Jeremiah that Conrad is at the house. Why feel guilt for something you didn't plan on happening? Why feel guilt when nothing happened at all? The spring semester is underway, and Jeremiah and Belly are back to being in love when Belly sees an email about Jeremiah's upcoming Cabo spring break trip. This comes as a surprise, as he never told her about it. She thought they would meet up over break, only to find out he'll be gone without telling her. She's upset, sure, but Jeremiah takes the fight a step further, first accusing her of jealousy, stating how she's always hated his fraternity, and then brings up Conrad and how he's so much better than himself, which Belly has never once said to Jeremiah. Jeremiah dumps her, saying how she's always criticizing him, and off he goes to Cabo, leaving Belly alone. She's a wreck for the whole week, but she comes in strong to confront him when he comes back. She says, and I quote, "You pick a fight, walk out the door, and I don't hear from you for a week?" After some shared apologies, they are back together, but it turns out Jeremiah is hiding a secret. He slept with another girl twice during that spring break trip. Now, Belly doesn't hear this from Jeremiah directly. She gets to overhear this from the other girl herself at a frat party. She is devastated and even slaps him in the face in their argument. He says they were broken up. She says they were on a break. Very Ross and Rachel from Friends. Here's my take. It doesn't matter what they thought. Being on a break, not being on a break. I think sleeping with someone else so close to the breakup/fight is still a sucky thing to do. It's like saying, I don't actually care that much about the thing that broke us apart or about you. It signals to the other person that you've already moved on, and by moving on so fast, you make the other person feel like you weren't really in love with them at all. Jeremiah can yell at Conrad all he wants about how when things get hard, he pushes people away. But Jeremiah really isn't any better. When things get hard, he turns to sex and partying instead of addressing his own emotions head on. I'm going to cover more of Jeremiah in a moment, but let's get into the engagement. In episode 2, Steven gets into a serious car accident that leaves Belly in charge of filling out all of the insurance forms, as Laurel and John, their parents, are nowhere to be found. She is scared, thinking of losing her brother, and she feels a sense of reflection about it all and how quickly life changes. She recalls the pain of losing Susanna as well and decides to reconcile with Jeremiah. Jeremiah takes the reconciliation one step further, and after sharing his own reflections on Steven's accident, he asks her to marry him. Notably, he does not have a ring when he does this, and he does not get down on one knee. But he proposes, and she says yes, nonetheless. Now comes the hardest part, telling their parents that they are getting married. Both Belly and Jeremiah are rightfully worried. They correctly assume it won't go well, but I'm not sure they anticipated how it actually went. In episode 3, the families get together in Cousins for a commemorative garden that was dedicated in honor of Susanna. They all go to a restaurant after dedication, and that is when they drop the bomb that they are engaged. Surprisingly, Adam and Laurel agree on the same thing. The wedding should not happen, and neither of them are ready for it. After the shock settles in, the argument begins, with Laurel suggesting just to move in together if they want to take their relationship to the next level. Adam asks Jeremiah, "You paid for that ring with what money?" calling back to the fact that Adam is the one that pays for his schooling and his lifestyle. Jeremiah and Belly are stubborn, though, and are optimistic that eventually they will convince their parents that the wedding is going to happen regardless of their opinions on it. I decided to invite my mom to talk about this wedding drama to hear from a mother's point of view, so here is that conversation.
For everyone who does not know, this is my mother. We wanted to talk about Laurel and the arc that she went on, and I especially wanted her on because I also got married pretty young. So I wanted a mother's perspective on season 3 and how Laurel reacted. So I guess the first thing I want to know is you watched a little bit of the show, so what do you make of Laurel in general?
Um, in general, I see her as um, definitely a protective mother and in many cases overprotective. Um, but I think a lot of that has to do with just her own experiences that have hurt her, and she doesn't want to see her children hurt, especially her daughter. And there's that saying that hurt people hurt people. And I think that's kind of how I see um, like Laurel's reaction later on. But in general, yeah, she's definitely a protective type. And I know they mentioned kind of stereotype stuff within the show, but I think, yeah, certain nationalities, that's kind of built in. And I think the Asian culture is one of them, where the parents want to be um, really right in there and sometimes
Mhm.
in control of their children's life. It's a lot like that in Latin cultures too. So
Mhm.
yeah, so I get that. I was like that with you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I definitely understood why Laurel was a bit more like protective, especially when I found out like how young she had them. It's not like it
Mhm.
explicitly stated like what age she was, but she must have been in her 20s. Because John, her ex-husband, says like, oh, like they are getting engaged not too much younger than we got married. So
Mhm.
I could definitely see like why like she was like younger in general for like everything.
Right.
So she's like very protective of them.
Mhm.
Um, what do you make of her relationship with Jeremiah?
With whose mom or
Belly's relationship.
Riley's relationship? Um, it's complicated. I
Yeah.
think I think like she's good friends with him and has been, but definitely see she's still very much attached to Conrad, and like Jeremiah's kind of like the second best. And but she, so she doesn't want to admit that she still has feelings for Conrad. I think she genuinely loves Jeremiah, but she hasn't let go of her love for Conrad completely. And so that, yeah, that kind of puts a little kink in there in that relationship with Jeremiah.
Do you think that's like her knowledge? Because also like Laurel does kind of know that the not like everything is over with Conrad to an extent,
Mhm.
and obviously she's gotten even closer with Conrad as she knows how much Conrad still is in love with her daughter. Do you think that also has a lot to do with why she exploded the way she did when they got engaged?
Mm. Yeah, I think so. It's funny because when I first started watching it, I didn't know too much about it. Like I made my mind up before I watched like all the episodes. So as more episodes came, I'm like, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't be so judgmental. Because you're right. I think mom knowing Belly's kind of feelings are still there for Conrad, she doesn't want to see Belly make a mistake and then end up divorced like she was, especially if kids come along and then the effect that
Right.
can have on the kids. Like she wants Belly to absolutely know that this is the one for her and not have any um questions about it so that she doesn't have any regrets going
Mhm.
forward. It's trying to protect her from getting hurt. That mom is like, nope, can't do it because she wants Belly to have more time to decide for sure that this is the one she wants.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Definitely. She definitely reacts in a very strong way, though, especially when the
Mhm.
news is like first revealed.
Yeah.
Did you watch that episode where they like announced their engagement at the dinner? What
Yeah.
what did you make of Laurel's reaction in that moment?
Um, uh, that I, I could feel for for her, but
Mhm.
I'm just like, whoa, kind of like back up, you know.
Yeah.
Um, like don't squash your daughters, um, you know, um, your daughter's the one who's it's her moment. Like don't
Mhm.
come down on it so hard. Um, and I'm sorry, my clock is going off in the background. Um, but yeah, that's I think what kind of gave me that first impression of like, wow, mom is really controlling.
Mhm.
And she didn't like the fact that she had no clue it was coming. I think that was part of her reaction too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Can see that. Definitely. I was watching bits and pieces of it with Sebastian, and
Mhm.
it definitely felt like they hadn't really thought through like marriage as a whole. I mean, the whole point of them getting engaged was for Jeremiah to prove that he is like a good boyfriend, like he can be loyal later. And all she's thinking is all those like emotions from like almost losing her brother in a car crash. And so she's more like reflective. And so I feel like it was more like a decision that was rushed. And like, yes,
Mhm.
they love each other.
Right.
I don't think they love each other enough to, have thought through everything.
Right.
And I don't know if you saw this episode because it was later on, but there was a moment when they were like touring apartments because they've like never like lived together before,
Yeah.
and they like visit an apartment that they really like. She tells the realtor like, yes, I have great credit, like it'll be great. And Jeremiah goes like, and what if you're like behind on credit card bills? Is that gonna
Yeah.
ruin my credit? And I'm like, oh, that's a
Oh
red
my goodness.
flag. That's a
Yeah.
bad sign. Like, but
Yeah.
she didn't even know about his like financial situation. And even then,
Yeah.
I don't think you should be with someone whose financial situation is my dad pays for everything.
Right. Right.
So I feel like definitely it was just like, whoa, just move in together if you want to like go to the next stage, because they don't know enough about life together to
Yeah.
get married.
Yeah. No, I definitely felt that too. Like I don't know that I would have had as intense of a reaction as
Mhm.
Laurel did, but I definitely would have like maybe not right there in the moment, but like taken Belly aside or taking you aside if you in that situation and be like, now are you sure you're really ready for this? Like you haven't had time to really get to know each other. Besides the sex part, and
Right.
there's more to life than that. And have you
Yeah.
discussed your goals? And like she was all planning to go to Paris. And then, you know, it stopped because of him. And, these kind of things where they hadn't he wasn't really taking into account like where is she at in life right now? Is she ready to get married? I think for him, it was more like, yeah, you're right. I want to prove that I really do love her and that was a mistake that I made and that's not going to happen again. And I don't want her to go off and be with somebody else. So
Right.
if we get married, then it's a done deal.
Mhm.
Uh, but during the apartment tour, I thought the same thing. Like they don't even like know what the other one really wants in a place to live,
Yeah.
or you know, you're right. Like the whole well, your dad pays for your credit cards. He's like, yeah, but you remember that one, and kept going. So
Mhm.
he's kind of like, what other secrets are you keeping from me if you're like spending money on this
Yeah.
card without me even knowing it? And is any of that even being spent on us and our relationship?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Um, yeah, 21, I think for some people is not a bad age if they've had a long enough relationship that's solid, but their
Mhm.
relationship isn't solid yet. Like they had just gotten back together.
Right.
And so um yeah, and I think he too is going through still a stage of grief that he's not even admitting is there. Where Conrad's definitely knows he has issues and he's seeing a counselor and everything. Um,
Right.
I just watched the episode where he had that panic attack. I don't remember
Oh
what
yeah.
season it was in, but yeah, so like he's like in touch with his emotions and is
Mhm.
trying to work through them. Where Jeremiah is just like, la di da, life is good, Yeah, my mom just died, but kind of thing.
Right.
And so when hard things happen, like he automatically went to kind of the flesh and trying to like
Mhm.
soothe his hurt feelings. And that's how we ended up with the other girl, because he
Yeah.
thought they were broken up, like they'd broken up for like not even a day,
Mhm. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you then make of that awful fight where she tells Belly like she's not gonna attend the wedding at all? What do you make of that?
Mm. Oh, I hurt so badly for Belly.
Mhm.
Like it, you could see it, like her whole world just came crashing. They're like, what do you mean, Mom? This is my wedding. I need you. Um, I couldn't get into the head of Laurel of like, you may not agree, but that's low. And that's definitely not loving your daughter. Um,
Mhm.
you know, your kids are going to make mistakes, but you still love them through them. You don't like shun them and push them away, or you try to help them through them. And so even if she thought it was a mistake, um, you know, having the heart of, okay, I don't agree with this necessarily, and I can share with you why later on, but I'm going to help you through if this is absolutely what you're determined to do. So you do it well, but also
Right.
help you to figure out, is this really what we want to be doing?
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I was
think
just like shocked.
yeah. I
Yeah,
think Belly really needed someone to reflect on all of the like red flags she was noticing because I think she really was feeling that, especially at like the bridal
mhm,
shower, seeing like her last name
yeah,
Fisher on like those cards. I think she was starting to feel like that panic.
right,
Uh, but she still at that point wasn't talking to her mom about it because of how much of a blow up that it was. And I
right,
feel like if Laurel had been more involved and more like, okay, I'm gonna explain to you why I think it's wrong. you can
Hmm.
take that as you will. If she had been more like that, then maybe Belly would have talked with
Yeah.
her about it and they would have been able to work through the red
Mhm.
flags that were being raised. But
Yeah.
it just,
Yeah. And even if Belly was like still determined to do it, like if mom had stayed connected and was helping her through the process, helping her to get the dress, helping her to figure out flowers, whatever, through those activities, they could even have the conversations about
yeah,
like what reality looks like after you're married. Like, are you, because Belly knew where mom was standing on them, didn't want them getting married, but if she felt like mom was going to be behind me regardless, I think Belly might have opened up and been able to say,
right.
you're right, maybe I'm not ready for this. Maybe there are some lingering things back there. Um, and but instead Belly's like pushing through it and like trying to ignore it because she just wants a relationship that's solid. And
Yeah,
at this point, honestly, I think it could have been anybody she would have been doing the same thing for because it's not Conrad, you know?
yeah, I could
So,
see that.
yeah.
Yeah. I was just I remember when I was like reading the book, it was last August. So it was like just before like wedding really got like real like for
Mhm.
me. So it was really interesting like reading that and I definitely felt sad because I was just like
Mhm.
I can't imagine not going through the past year with you. And she was going
Mhm.
through like just only a few months. Uh,
Yeah.
but it really is like a crazy emotional time. And you really do like reflect a lot on where you were and then where, like, what the life you're going to have.
Yeah.
Uh, and I definitely felt, because in the book, I don't know if you know this, in the book, Belly's only
Mhm.
like 18, 19 when
Oh,
she
wow.
gets engaged. She's even
Wow. That
younger.
is, yeah, that
But
is definitely, yeah.
yes, she only just finished her like freshman year in college, I think, when the book happens. Like it's not that
Yeah.
far in the future. So it was even crazier. It made
Yeah.
even more sense as to why Laurel was kind of, freaking out.
Right. Yeah.
But I definitely felt like I felt sad for her, but I felt the immaturity difference like a lot in between like her and I.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I could not wrap my head around the fact that they were actually going through with the wedding and that it took him calling it off and that's why it didn't happen. Like I was shocked that it
Got
was
to that
Jeremiah's
part
day
yet.
at the end of the day.
I haven't
Sorry,
gotten to
spoiler.
that part yet. Spoiler alert.
It's so much more dramatic and
Okay.
it's for a reason you would not even guess.
Okay.
But yeah,
Well,
it's
I'm gonna continue watching it now that I'm kind of hooked. But I was telling your dad, um, like this show is one that had it been on when you were a teenager, we would not have let you watch it. Like that's
really
how strict we were with you. And that's, I
mhm,
think, kind of the strictness that Laurel has with her kids. Not
mhm,
as much, but because there was the relationships that were going on behind the scenes. But
mhm,
that's how strict we were. But I think that also helped kind of shape you into knowing like I deserve better than this. Like when you look at some of your past relationships, like I deserve
mhm,
better than this, you know? And so um when you went off to college, I just prayed like whoever it is she meets here, God, let it be someone good. Like
yeah,
even if it's not the person she ends up marrying, let it be a good guy who's gonna
mhm,
treat her well and not like the other guys did, so that you had a good image of what um like a happy marriage could be, a happy future could be with a, a person. So when you
right,
did meet Sebastian and he was so attentive and so like helping you through even your own emotional struggles and and your school struggles, whatever, um uh he was there. And so
mhm,
I could see like, yeah, this couple is meant to be. And it just got stronger and stronger as the years
mhm,
went through and you guys went abroad. And I saw you blossoming into your own independence and being able to get by without mom being there every step of the way, which is how I tried to be when you were younger, that helicopter mom. Um,
Mhm.
so that by the time you were ready to get married, I knew you were ready because you had
Yeah.
talked about it with him, you had your whole like future planned out with him, and you were in a good place where if for some reason it didn't work out and you guys didn't get married, you were you were in a good place and you had
Mhm.
a good focus on a career and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, but because you guys are doing it together and I've seen the progression of your relationship, like we had no qualms, like giving our blessing for you getting married. Um, and that was one thing, like the difference between me and Laurel, like she got blindsided by the fact that they
Yeah.
got engaged, whereas Sebastian came and asked dad, and well, I happened to be there, you know, for not permission, but for his blessing on him asking you. Um,
Yeah.
and I think if dad had said no, he might have held off and waited until we would give that blessing because he knew that was important to you too. But we were like, amen, go for it. We want our daughter to be happy and we know that you're going to make her happy. This is a solid relationship, and you treat her like a queen. And so, um, that's what we love about Sebastian is how well he treats you. And I think Laurel sees the past,
Mhm.
as well as kind of projecting to the future of what life is going to be for Belly when she's
Mhm.
flip-flopping between these two brothers of who she wants to be with. And then there's that other guy that was involved in there too, that
Mhm.
she doesn't even have a clear picture of what she
Yeah.
in a solid relationship.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was watching it and I was just like, how have you not had more like deeper conversations about the future?
Mhm.
Because like even from the moment Sebastian and I started dating, we were always like future focused and we were
Mhm.
talking about like what our goals were. And it worked
Mhm.
out perfectly that we were both in the same major and that we both
Yeah.
wanted to win an Oscar one day. But even more than that, it was like we had shared like wants to be like married one day,
Mhm.
married relatively soon. Like we talked about a timeline that we wanted our relationship to follow.
Yeah.
And we have stuck through with that and we've talked through differences in those things and different ways we want to go about achieving the same thing, like career wise.
Mhm.
And we like at the end of the day, we just like work together on making these decisions and deciding when things were going to happen. Like I knew for that entire
Mhm.
semester that Sebastian was going to propose at any moment, because we had talked about it and because I
Yeah.
had mentioned like, oh, like I want it to happen on this timeline, but not on graduation day because I want graduation day to just be graduation day. Like I made
Yeah.
that clear.
Yeah.
Um, and like we talked about rings, we talked about
Mhm.
like the wedding that we wanted before we even got engaged. So like
Yeah.
it was
And you're
definitely
already
shock.
saving money.
Yeah, we had been saving for a while. So I was just like, it's just like shocking seeing someone get proposed and go through all of this when you haven't had those big conversations about what you want. Um, and yeah, I was just like blown away. And I don't know if you picked up on this, but I've been noticing this pattern of Jeremiah following in the footsteps of his dad,
Mhm.
and letting his dad really break him down over like the constant comparisons to Conrad. Um,
Mhm.
and I think for a while he was in danger of following in his dad's footsteps. I don't know if you know. I think I did put that down in the notes I sent you though about how Adam had an affair with a secretary at his workplace.
Mhm.
Wasn't super there when Susanna was, dealing with
Right.
chemo.
Yeah.
Closed off
Isn't
and
that the secretary that like is planning their wedding?
yes,
Yeah.
which is atrocious in my opinion, atrocious.
Because he,
Um,
he doesn't know the kids know. I think that's part of it.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Uh, but it's just like yeah, I think I think he is kind of in danger, or like he was in danger of following that,
Mm,
and he didn't really have like a good example in what marriage is by how his dad treated his mom. And I think his dad also had the same complex that you mentioned of like turning to having an affair to deal with things that might be happening at home, breakdowns in the marriage, or just the
right.
fact that, Susanna has cancer. It is like a thing where
Hmm.
when the wife gets sick, the man can sometimes, move on to someone else in the
Right.
meantime. So yeah, I think that is a pretty clear picture as to what Belly and Jeremiah's marriage would have been like. I don't think
Hmm.
he would have been faithful throughout all of it. I
Yeah.
think it would have
And
definitely ended in divorce.
yeah, Belly didn't have the example either of a strong husband, with his dad going off and having an affair and getting divorced and stuff
Yeah.
too. It's like both
Well,
of them had bad examples. Um, and so, yeah, I think it's doomed
it
from the
wasn't
beginning.
even an affair with Belly's parents. It was like Laurel had like fallen out of love.
Mm,
And she was the one who brought upon divorce.
okay, I haven't watched that one.
And I remember in the books, she kind of describes the dad as still kind of being a little like hung up on the whole thing. Like it came also as
Mm,
like a shock to him. And there is a conversation that John and Laurel have, I believe in like episode 4 or 5, um,
mhm.
because they're starting to like reconnect and actually talk about their marriage again.
Okay.
And John is under the impression that Laurel like regrets ever marrying him. And she's like,
Mm,
"No, I don't regret marrying you. I regret losing myself in the title of wife and mother and becoming those
mhm.
titles when I didn't even know who I was or what I
Yeah,
wanted to be."
that's right.
And
I do
that is
remember
what
that.
she regretted.
Yeah.
But she never had that explanation given to Belly and Steven.
Mhm.
I mean, it is a hard thing to say, especially when they were only like 15, 16 when the divorce
Right.
happened.
Yeah.
But I think in this moment, I think it would have been a good idea for her to explain, this is why I needed to leave that marriage. This is why it wasn't working on
Mhm.
my end. Um, because they just kind of saw it as mom wasn't in love and that she may never have been in love. And so,
Mhm.
I mean, I think there's a moment in season 1 where she asks her mom, like, what being in love really like means, and knowing that you have like the one you're in love with.
Mhm.
Um, and she couldn't really give Belly like the straightest answer.
Mhm.
And so I just feel like she didn't have like a good example of like true love in marriage goes past like just feelings being gone. It goes to like being together as like companionship and choosing each
Mhm.
other every day.
Right.
That was kind of lost in
Mhm.
Laurel and John's marriage. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think she definitely didn't know. She just thought like, oh, he loves me, and that's what was missing in my parents' marriage. So that's what's gonna make it work. And it's
Right.
not. It's
Right. No, it goes deeper.
not.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I came from a family of divorce too, in a situation where like the lines are blurred to me of when they were separated and then when they were divorced.
Mhm.
Um, because my dad had been in the Navy and then he had a job that had him going all over the world. And so um I think um that was a relationship that kind of just drifted over time because of distance, but there wasn't, I don't remember any kind of fights or anything like that. So I still had the hope, and I can still remember in kindergarten, like I want to be a mommy, and like when people would ask me, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be a mommy and I want to be a wife. And because like in my family, they still tried to like be close with us kids, me and my brother. My dad was still involved, even though he was distant, a distance away. Um, and but we didn't get any explanation either. So I think those were kind of missing pieces that I've had to kind of put together myself as I've gotten older. And so I think in raising you, like those were things I didn't know how to explain
Yeah.
necessarily, because I didn't have that example um, of explaining relationships to me. They just kind of happened.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm just glad it happened with like a wonderful guy.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
like I have a husband that I think Sebastian's a lot like your dad, in that he's solid, and that regardless of what may go on, you know, if there's um, you know, children come along, if like I have different physical disabilities or whatever, he's not wavering in his
Mhm.
commitment to me. If anything, has made it stronger. And I feel
Right.
like Sebastian's the same kind of guy, where I see in Jeremiah that when the going gets tough, he gets afraid and he kind
Mhm.
of backs off. And Belly is like, I don't know how to deal with this. And
Mhm.
you know, and so they haven't had good training, but they also haven't had anyone to teach them anything different.
Right.
Mhm.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, I definitely am happy that Laurel came around,
Mhm.
eventually. I am glad that, you're gonna have to see the end of the show because
Yeah.
it really gets wild. I would love your reaction later
Okay.
on to, I think, what's the episode 8? Yeah, when you watch that, let me know. I'd love to hear what you
Okay.
think.
Um, yeah, because for
But
season 3, I think I only got to like episode 5
Mhm.
before I'm like, you know, I should really go back to like the beginning and see what was a relationship before
Yeah.
and how was mom, because like was mom always that controlling? Like,
Mhm.
and she was.
Yeah.
Was, and like just even things that the different characters said about her, like, oh, don't let Laurel know about this. Like
Right.
I could see a lot of myself in Laurel in those kind of situations. But so yeah, I had to kind of see for myself, what is this relationship really like? But she was going through so much herself that I think
Yeah.
she had her blinders on
Mhm.
to you know, to what her kids were going through,
Yeah.
you know.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for being on this episode. I had a lot of fun. I hope
So did
you
I.
listeners
Thank you.
enjoyed this little conversation.
Yes, I did. And thank you for introducing me to a new show.
Before we talk about how the wedding falls apart, I want to talk about the drama with Steven and Taylor. Steven and Taylor seem to have an on and off again relationship. They clearly dated for a bit after the events of season 2, but it didn't last. That didn't mean they didn't stop seeing each other, though. When we catch up to them in episode 1, they are both dating other people, yet still hooking up. They are seemingly under the agreement that they are better at having casual sex instead of a real relationship. But Steven doesn't want that anymore. It's clear he's not over her and wants to have something real with her. He even breaks up with his girlfriend, getting ready to make this big declaration that he wants them to try dating again. But Taylor isn't having it. She says they never work when they're together and can't understand what he doesn't get about that. She jumps out of the car they're driving in to leave the conversation, but as Stevens tries to follow her, he gets in a major crash. Taylor blames herself for feeling that if she hadn't left the car like that, he wouldn't have gotten in the accident. She says to Belly that she keeps pushing him away so that he can't push her away first. She has some deep rooted abandonment issues, and it seems she's dealing with it by keeping Steven, whom she loves, an arm's length away. The accident prompts her to really reflect on this behavior and want to make a change. When Steven wakes up from his coma, she goes in there ready to tell him that she is ready to be together when Steven drops a bomb. He reveals he's also had time to reflect on this accident. He decides that Taylor was right, that they don't work together, and he should just move on. Taylor is stunned into silence by the news, but simply agrees with him and leaves the room heartbroken. Over the course of the next few episodes, they don't really talk much. Taylor's mom, Lucinda, tries multiple times to get Taylor and Steven in the same room and talking, but Taylor catches on straight away. She intends on giving Steven what he wants by just being simple friends, nothing more. And she tries really hard to not let her growing jealousy over a new coworker, Denise, get in the way of that. Denise and Steven have an almost enemies to lovers story. She can't stand him half the time, but he is good at what he does. There's plenty of chemistry between them, but neither really addresses it. Jeremiah can certainly pick up on it, though. It's not until Denise attends the wedding festivities for Belly that the chemistry really picks up. Taylor can see this happening and encourages both of them to go for it and get together. And they do, kind of. They kiss, but it's apparent right away that there's no fireworks. They agree right then and there that they shouldn't be romantic partners, just business partners. Stephen then knows that he really isn't over Taylor. Seeing his potential relationship fizzle out with Denise, he sees Taylor and decides that this is the girl for him. They finally get back together and even decide to move in together after graduation. It's happily ever after. For them. Episode 7 is when trouble really arises for Belly. Something to note here is that Conrad is still madly in love with her. Has been in love, has never not been in love. He hides his feelings well by trying to be supportive for both Belly and Jeremiah as they struggle to get the wedding together, but it all comes to a head at the bachelor/bachelorette. The guys and girls go on separate broad crawls throughout Cousins on an alcohol-filled night. Belly takes an edible for the first time and panics as she's now envisioning Conrad. She says she only ever pictured Conrad thinking about her wedding, and she is beginning to really freak out. Taylor sees this reaction and knows that Belly isn't really over Conrad, but gets her to calm down and to get sober so that they can talk about it later. Conrad is the designated driver for the boys, so he watches his brother get more drunk. That's when he overhears Jeremiah and his friends joke about Cabo, about him sleeping with a different girl. He seems much less regretful talking about it, laughing as though it wasn't the reason he almost lost Belly in the first place. Conrad is furious hearing this, immediately deciding he has to tell Belly as he assumes she doesn't know. They run into each other on the beach later that night, and that's when he tells her. Conrad is horrified to find out that Belly not only knows about Cabo, but that she's defending him and still marrying him regardless. He can't believe what he's hearing, and that's when he builds up to admit how he's feeling, that Belly and Jer shouldn't get married, that he's still in love with her. He says, "Don't be with him, don't marry him, be with me." Belly rejects him brutally, leaving him on the beach. I've seen people talk about why Belly believes the Conrad breakup was worse. Here's my thoughts. I saw someone say that she holds her relationship with Jeremiah to a lower standard than Conrad, and I agree. Conrad was her first love. She romanticized him, romanticized what her relationship with him would be like. She anticipated undying love. That's how she thought of him. And when he pushed her away, it ruined her perspective of him. Her standards lowered significantly with Jeremiah. Him being able to say he loves her and he's sorry and he's remorseful for hurting her is something Conrad didn't really do in their relationship. So despite any red flags with Jeremiah, she'll disregard them entirely because he outwardly shows her love, which I think she values a lot more now as a result of her hurt with Conrad. Belly thinks hard about Conrad's confession, not out of considering her options, but out of anger. She feels she must tell Jeremiah what Conrad did, which arguably might not have been the best thing, but it did all work out in the end. Jeremiah reacts in a way that Belly did not expect. He vanishes the morning of the wedding. No one can find him, and it's hard to understand exactly what Jeremiah is thinking until he finally confronts Belly. Jeremiah knows about Christmas, knows Conrad was in the house at the same time she was, and knows she lied about it. He admits to picking the fight that caused them to break up over spring break because he was angry she wasn't admitting what happened over Christmas. He tells her that despite nothing happening over Christmas break, it was when Belly started loving Conrad again. He says, and I quote, "I need you to look me in the eyes and tell me you don't still love him." And Belly doesn't lie. She says a part of her will always love him. And that seals the deal. Jeremiah says back, "I don't want part of you, I want all of you." The wedding is off. Their relationship is now over. Here's what I think not many people have mentioned. While Jeremiah might have cheated on Belly, in a way, Belly has been emotionally cheating on Jeremiah for months. Emotionally cheating, I think, is a very destructive form of cheating. It's not physically hooking up with someone else. It's turning to someone else for emotional connection, which can lead to falling in love with them. What's interesting about it is because there's no physical signs of cheating, of course Jared could have felt paranoid or jealous. He didn't have proof, but he could see her face contort whenever he brought up Conrad. Belly was completely in denial, and for a while it was working with Conrad gone in California. But marrying his brother means Conrad comes back, and the feelings came right back. Belly didn't want to admit it, And honestly, I'm proud of Jeremiah for finally confronting her about Conrad and breaking things off. I think it was 100% the right thing to do, especially since Belly would not have ever done that herself. Belly leaves the wedding venue, quickly packing up her things, and makes the rash decision to go to Paris and tell no one. Stephen and Taylor are left to pick up Jeremiah, who is understandably upset. Conrad stays in Cousins, worried about his brother and trying to take care of him, even though Jer wants nothing to do with him. Belly initially goes to Paris under the impression a spa and a study abroad program is still available. But when she gets there, the school tells her that that information was incorrect. She initially believes she must return home, but after her bag gets stolen and she tracks it down, meeting a group of nice strangers in the process, she decides to stay. She is under a tourist visa, so she works under the table and finds a flat with 3 other people to live in as she tries to navigate a new life. It's hard, and it's a lonely adjustment period, especially since she's not fluent in French. But she immerses herself in Paris, practicing the language every chance she gets, explores the sights, and works hard to ensure she can call Paris her home. And she succeeds. She gains strong friendships, gets a job that can get her her work visa, and finds a gorgeous flat that she can live in on her own. Living in Paris doesn't mean the past is forgotten, though. She needed to grow and reflect and think, and Paris did that for her. She talked with her mom and Taylor often and texted Jeremiah here and there to try to have a friendship again, but that was not exactly successful. Conrad starts writing letters to her, though, which she doesn't show, but she does cherish these. Conrad and Jeremiah finally run into each other in episode 10 for the first time since the wedding. Of course, it's tense, and there's apologies, but it's also been almost a year since the would-be wedding. Jeremiah actually talked to Denise earlier in this episode, and she pushes him to forgive everyone that has hurt him, not because they deserve it, but because then the hurt they caused him won't hold power over him anymore. She seems to have a way of getting through to Jer that helps him work through these emotions, which he hasn't done before. When he sees Conrad, Jer is able to have a mature conversation, able to talk about the wedding with him, and even Conrad's feelings for Belly. While he isn't really happy about it, he gives Conrad a green light to chase what his heart desires, aka Belly. It's perfect timing, as Conrad has a conference in Brussels he's attending, and it would only be an hour and a half train ride to Paris. The conference also falls on Belly's birthday, and what better thing to do than surprise her on her birthday, right? Now it's time to talk about the final episode. Again, if you have not seen it, what are you doing? Go watch it. I was on the edge of my seat, and that hour and 20 minutes really flew by. We have 2 major storylines here. What's happening in Paris and what's happening in Cousins. I'll start with Cousins, as that is the boring one. I guess Jeremiah is becoming a chef, like a proper chef, and today is the day he presents his food to a bunch of food influencers in an event put on by Taylor, who works at a PR agency. The venue flooded, though, and a series of chaotic events occurs, causing the event to be switched to the Cousins Beach House, and Jeremiah to panic that he would not do a good enough job. Denise tells Jeremiah that the company her and Stephen founded is doing so well that they now have to move to San Francisco. She's definitely going, putting an end to Jeremiah being her roommate, but Stephen is also going, just hasn't told Taylor that. Taylor, of course, overhears this entire conversation and spirals, freaking out that Stephen didn't tell her and that means their relationship is in trouble. She is passive-aggressive with Stephen all day, hoping he'll finally tell her himself about San Francisco. But he doesn't, so she resorts to yelling at him for not telling her. Stephen initially says he didn't tell her because she just moved to Boston, and what if they don't work out? She gets even angrier, as she really would go to San Francisco to be with him. He just had to ask and not make assumptions. They make up, and all are happy with each other again. I know I said Denise and Jeremiah had been roommates for months at this point in the show, and she was there for him when he was feeling down, but I saw no chemistry there. There was significantly more chemistry with Denise and Stephen, not her and Jer. So the fact that at the end of the day they kiss and seemingly get together made absolutely no sense to me. I didn't see them together. I think she can do so much better than him. I don't think it would go anywhere. Seeing as she is 100% moving to San Francisco, I got no indication that Denise ever had feelings for Jer. I think if they wanted to sell it more, we wouldn't have been so focused on the will they won't they with Stephen. This whole potential relationship with Jeremiah just felt really unnecessary. Now to the main event, Conrad and Belly's reunion. It's awkward immediately, but she still agrees to give him a tour of Paris before he takes the train to Brussels. He goes into this smart. He doesn't come with any goal except to see her, connect with her, and see her life in Paris. They bond throughout the day, exploring the city, showing him all the places she has grown to call home. Things go so well that Belly invites him to the pre-birthday dinner her friends planned for her. I thought this would be an awkward meeting, especially since Belly had a thing with her friend Benito for a few months, but it's revealed that that relationship was just a fling, and Belly's friends welcome Conrad with open arms. After the successful dinner, they walk and talk and end up reminiscing on what happened between them. She states she feels like she is the villain, which isn't a 100% false take. I definitely think there are things she can take the blame on. Different harsh words that she's shouted at friends or family members, defending people who shouldn't be defended, and holding people to higher standards that are unrealistic for them to have. But at the end of the day, Conrad and Jeremiah also made mistakes, kept secrets, been selfish. It all comes back to the immaturity that only as they grow older do they understand how wrong they were for that. After reminiscing, Belly and Conrad kiss and hook up. It's immediately assumed by Conrad that they are now an item, but Belly isn't so sure. Not only does she still want to live in Paris and have a life there, which is apparent, and I totally would be the same way, she also feels like Conrad says he loves her and takes it back far too often for her to believe him. She wonders out loud if Conrad only loves her because that's what Susanna wanted. Conrad puts his whole heart on the line trying to express in any way he can that he has never stopped loving her. He says, and I quote, "I have changed everything about myself, and the one thing that hasn't changed is I love you." Belly still isn't sure, and so he leaves in tears, heading to the train station to Brussels. It takes not even a minute for Belly to see that even though she's changed her whole life, learned a language, cut her hair, one thing also hasn't changed for her. She has and always will love Conrad Fisher. Belly races to the train station in a dramatic, heart-stopping fashion, even boarding the train to see him. The first thing that went through my mind when she got on that train was that I hope she has her passport because Brussels is in Germany. And then she sees him and says, "If there are infinite worlds, every version of me chooses you." And that's it, really. It's implied that they're endgame, even having spent a Christmas in Paris in the end credits. Bonrad, I think is how they referred to the ship name, is official and endgame. As I was making this video, I found out there is going to be a movie, which I wholeheartedly cannot wait for. I agree with many people who watched the finale that we frankly need more. We need more storylines finished, more revelations. I really want to see Jeremiah's reaction to Conrad and Belly being together. I want to see what in the world is happening with Adam and if he's becoming a better person. I didn't really talk about him in this episode much because I still don't care about him, but something is changing with him. And I want to see Belly and Conrad's wedding. That does happen in the epilogue in the books, and I need to see it all come together. Overall now, having seen all the episodes of the show, I can say that this show has been so fun to watch. I've enjoyed every episode and was hooked all the way through. I'm really sad that the main storyline with the books is over, but I'm excited to see what they'll do for the movie. This is one of the only shows I have ever watched all the way through, and I'm happy to say it's one of my favorites. I did love the book so much, but I do love this adaptation and how involved the author Jenny Han was in its production. I love that she directed some of the episodes. We can really see her vision come to life, and I hope to be like her one day. Thank you so much for watching. I definitely will be making more video essays in the future, but for now, thank you for tuning into my deep dives on the show, and I hope you come back for more. You can follow me at caitlin.mp4 on Instagram and our podcast, and Cut the Podcast, on all platforms. Thanks again for being here with me today. And cut.